He just wanted the money, but when the shimmering, distraught eyes of the Duke's alien wife met his across the opulent, blood-splattered throne room, everything changed. The debt was forgotten. The threat of the Duke's guards, the acrid smell of ozone and burning metal all faded away. In that paralyzing instant, the human collector, Elias Vance, understood one cold truth. He was no longer just collecting a debt. He was looking into the eyes of a creature whose freedom, life, and very soul had just been betrothed to the single most dangerous, unpredictable thing in the galaxy, human defiance. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to steal the most valuable, volatile asset in the Orion Arm, all for the sake of a promise he hadn't even made. The sprawling, emerald green world of Xylos was supposed to be as simple. In and out, stop for Elias. The gambling debt was a substantial one of 5-digit, sum owed by a minor corporate executive who thought the Duke of Xylos, Kalen, wouldn't notice a few credits siphoned off his personal account. Elias, a former military logistics operative with a knack for persuasion and an even greater knack for discreet violence, had been hired by a syndicate to make the collection. He didn't care about the Duke, the executive, or the complexities of Xylosian trade agreements. He just wanted his commission and a ticket back to the core worlds. Elias landed his battered freighter, the Silent Partner, in a back alley hangar near the Duke's sprawling estate. The city itself was a testament to ancient technology and modern opulence. Glittering spire towers made of bioluminescent crystalline material pierced a sky perpetually the color of deep violet. This world had style, but style didn't pay the bills. He was met not by the nervous executive, but by the Duke's retainers, hulking, six-limbed beings called catastrophically, whose chitinous armor clicked menacingly with every step. They didn't speak the galactic common tongue, but their universal translator chips projected a harsh, synthesized message. The Duke is aware of your purpose. Human, he wishes to discuss the terms of this debt. This was unusual. Dukes didn't negotiate minor collection fees. They sent their heavies. Elias felt the familiar prickle of unease on his neck, the kind that had saved his life during a dozen ill-advised operations. He left his pulse rifle and plasma pistol holstered, but kept his hand near the emergency stunner on his hip. He followed the catastrophically through labyrinthine corridors until they opened into a cavernous chamber. The throne room thought it was too grand, too silent. Duke Kalen sat on a throne carved from what looked like frozen black nebula gas, his reptilian eyes fixed on Elias. Kalen was a member of the dominant, long-lived Vylori race sleek, pale-skinned creatures known for their cold intellect and even colder cruelty. But Kalen was not alone. Standing beside the Duke's throne was a woman. She was not Vylori. She was tall, almost regal, with skin that seemed to shift color slightly in the room's ambient light, settling on an ethereal, pale lilac. Her ears were long and pointed, framed by white, almost crystalline hair. She wore a dress of silver weave that shimmered like captured starlight, but her eyes were the focus, a deep, wounded sapphire blue, radiating a silent, desperate scream. This, Elias realized with a gut punch of disbelief, had to be the alien wife. She was an Aelani, an ancient, near-extinct elven race of legend, believed to possess rare biosynthetic abilities. She looked fragile, but under that facade, a deep, silent strength seemed to be battling despair. The human debt collector, the Duke's translator hissed, its voice like grinding gears. Your employer has made a mistake. The executive has been dealt with. He gestured, and a catastrophically guard dropped a small electronic credit chip onto the floor, scattering dust. The debt is nullified. Leave this place, human. Elias should have agreed. He should have grabbed the chip and run, thanking his lucky stars he wasn't collateral damage. But as he looked at the chip, he saw the Aelani woman subtly shift her weight, her sapphire eyes flicking to a small, intricate pendant hanging from her neck. It was a clear, desperate plea. A single, almost imperceptible shake of her head, Don't take the money. Don't go. Elias felt a surge of unreasoning anger. This wasn't just about debt anymore. The Duke had used a simple collection agency to lure someone in, to make a show of power. He lifted his head and met the Duke's reptilian gaze. "That's not how this works, Duke," Elias said, his voice calm and level, cutting through the vast silence. "My contract requires payment from the original debtor. Since you dealt with him, you've created a logistical problem. And since this is now a logistical problem on your premises, I'm going to need to file a full damage report. Starting with ... collateral." The Duke's cold smile widened, revealing razor-sharp teeth. "Collateral? What could you possibly value here, human?" Elias didn't look at the Duke. He looked straight at the Aelani woman, who flinched, then held his gaze with a terrifying intensity. "Her, the alien wife," Elias stated, the words echoing loudly in the immense chamber. "The Duke's alien wife is the new collateral. I'll take her instead of the credits." A ripple of shock went through the catastrophically guards. The Duke's expression didn't change, but his tail twitched violently. The Aelani woman closed her eyes, a single silver tear tracing a path down her lilac cheek. She was not shocked. She was relieved. The Duke's voice dropped, venomous. "You have just claimed a being that is property of a sovereign recognized system. You have committed an act of piracy and war, human." Elias spread his hands, a genuine, unsettling grin stretching across his face. "Welcome to the HFY dollar part of the galaxy. Duke, we call it a trade-up. Now she comes with me. Or I start burning down your fortress to file my insurance claim." He knew he was signing his own death warrant. He just needed to figure out how to survive the next 10 seconds. The silence in the Duke's throne room was so absolute, it felt like a pressure wave. The catastrophically guards, trained to respond instantly to threats, were frozen, their reptilian masters momentarily stunned by Elias Vance's sheer audacity. Demanding the Duke's alien wife as collateral was not just an insult. It was a galactic incident. Duke Kalen rose slowly, his smooth, pale face contorted into a mask of pure, reptilian rage. "You mistake our patience for weakness, human. You will be vaporized. And I will send the pieces of your ship back to your pathetic core worlds as a warning." Elias didn't flinch. He glanced at the Aelani woman. She was no longer crying. Her sapphire eyes were wide, focused not on the Duke, but on a point behind Elias. Her mouth formed a single silent word, recognizable even to an amateur xenolinguist: run. "I'd rethink that." "Duke," Elias warned, shifting his weight slightly, his hand hovering over the stunner. "I'm betting that alien wife isn't as easily replaced as a corporate stooge. Think of the paperwork alone." It was a distraction. The Duke took the bait, snarling, "She is nothing but ... Before Kalen could finish the insult, the Aelani woman moved. It was a blur of silver fabric and lilac skin, not toward the guards, but toward Elias. She placed a hand on his arm, a touch that was surprisingly warm, and spoke not in the common tongue, but in a language that sounded like wind chimes and distant thunder. The catastrophically guards finally broke formation, their energy weapons powering up with a high-pitched whine. Elias braced himself, ready to dive for cover, knowing the stunner wouldn't stop a full squad. But he didn't need to as the first guard leveled its weapon. A sound ripped through the opulent chamber, not the scream of a plasma rifle, but a deafening biological roar that vibrated the crystalline floor. The sound was immediately followed by a chaotic crash as the immense, stained glass dome above the throne room shattered inward, raining crystalline shards onto the terrified guards. Through the gaping hole in the ceiling plummeted a pair of creatures that defied all local taxonomy. They were draconic, but scaled with iridescent metal, their wings beating the air with a force that felt like a localized gale. The first was roughly the size of a light transport. Its scales the color of molten gold, streaked with crimson. The second was smaller, more agile, and its scales were a deep, shifting sapphire, mirroring the color of the Aelani woman's eyes. They didn't breathe fire. They vented superheated plasma from specialized organs in their throats. And the gold dragon let out a blast that flash-fused the crystalline floor where the first catastrophically guard had stood only moments before. The catastrophically were disciplined soldiers. But they were not prepared for a coordinated attack by two colossal, biomechanically enhanced MATHBF, HFY dragons. The throne room immediately descended into chaos. The Duke was screaming orders that were drowned out by the metallic roars. "They're not just dragons," Elias shouted over the din, shielding the Aelani woman. "They have tech. They're armored." "They are Niran," the woman replied, her voice steady despite the chaos, her language translating through the subtle tech embedded in her silver pendant. "My family. My pets. They came for me." The smaller sapphire Niran landed directly in front of them, its massive head dipping low. "Come, human," the Aelani commanded, pushing Elias onto the dragon's armored neck. She vaulted up behind him with an athlete's grace, gripping the scales. "We must go, now." Elias, a man who prided himself on preparation, found himself clinging to the neck of a battle-armored space dragon. This was definitely outside his contract parameters. "Where are we going?" he yelled. "To the sanctuary." She replied, her voice ringing with desperate hope. "The Coreward systems. My name is Lysandra. We will discuss the Duke's collateral after we are clear of this planet's defense grid." The gold Niran, having incapacitated 3 guards with a well-aimed sweep of its massive spiked tail, cleared the way. The sapphire Niran launched itself through the jagged hole in the ceiling. The transition from the warm, opulent air of the throne room to the freezing, thin atmosphere of Xylos was jarring. Elias found himself holding onto a strange, elf-like royal as they rocketed into the violet sky. Pursued by the Duke's rapidly deploying interceptors, Lysandra gripped him tighter, pointing a delicate, gloved finger at his small, heavily shielded moon orbiting Xylos. "The Duke keeps the bulk of his fleet there. They will be alerted to the launch signature. We cannot outrun them in the atmosphere." "Then we don't outrun them," Elias said, his military logistics training finally kicking back in, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against the dragon's metallic armor. He adjusted the hold on the sapphire dragon's neck. "We hide in the blind spots. Take us low, Lysandra. Through the jungle spines, the dense cloud cover. We need to lose the heat signature." Lysandra looked back, her eyes shining with surprise and a flash of something Elias recognized: approval. "You know Xylosian terrain, human." "No," Elias grinned, adrenaline washing away all fear. "But I know how to disappear. And every despot keeps a high-altitude fleet. They hate scraping through the muck. Trust the human, Lysandra. Let's see what these MATHBF HFY pets of yours can really do." With a savage cry, Lysandra steered the sapphire Niran down, banking sharply into the dense electrified clouds of the jungle spines. The Duke's interceptors hot on their tail, preparing for the kill. Elias knew their odds were close to 0, but holding onto the Duke's terrified alien wife, the prize made the risk feel strangely worthwhile. The electrified, tempestuous clouds of the jungle spines were less of a hiding place and more of a terrifying, zero-visibility obstacle course. The Duke's Vylori interceptors, sleek and fast, were not designed for low-altitude evasion. They were meant for open-space dogfights. But their pilots were skilled, and the ships were equipped with short-range magnetic scanners. Elias clung to the Niran's armored back, his eyes streaming from the wind and humidity, the thunderous roar of the dragon and the pursuing ships filling his ears. Lysandra, the Aelani wife, was a natural pilot, her pointed ears twitching, guiding the sapphire Niran through narrow canyons of rock and bursts of plasma fire. "They're too close," Elias shouted, pointing at the flashing red lines on the Niran's HUD display, which was projected onto the beast's armored forehead. "We need to break atmosphere, but we won't make it to the silent partner." "We do not need the silent partner," Lysandra yelled back, her silver hair whipping against his face. "The Nirans are armored and shielded. Their scales are enhanced adamantium composite. They were meant for atmospheric re-entry and combat." "So these are your pets?" Elias gasped, dodging a near miss from a railgun. "They're small capital ships with scales." "They are my family," she corrected, her voice firm. "We, the Aelani, have always nurtured life, even weaponized life. They are what the Duke wanted from me, my ability to bond and control these weapons. He wanted a fleet. That was the twist. Elias wasn't just stealing a trophy wife. He was stealing a weapons factory." The thought brought a cold, professional smile to his face. This was truly a trade-up. The gold Niran Theron was providing brutal cover fire, sweeping behind the sapphire dragon and blasting one of the pursuing interceptors out of the sky with a sustained burst of plasma. The explosion momentarily blinded the remaining Vylori pilots. "Now!" Lysandra commanded, pulling the sapphire Niran into a vertical climb. "Hold tight, Elias. We're breaking the atmosphere. The high-orbit fleet will be waiting." The sapphire Niran Silas roared its ascent, its powerful wings generating an impossible amount of thrust. They burst through the cloud layer and into the clear, dark expanse of space. Sure enough, a Vylori battlecruiser, flanked by 3 destroyers, was waiting in the high-orbit patrol zone. They immediately locked onto Silas and Theron. The odds were insurmountable. "This is it," Elias muttered, drawing his emergency stunner. "I was a logistics man, not a fighter. I should have just taken the chip." Lysandra pressed her back against his, her voice taking on a resonant, ethereal quality that vibrated through his very bones. "You did not take the chip, Elias Vance. You took a chance on someone else's freedom. That is the human way I have read about. That is why they fear your kind." She lifted her hands, and the intricate silver pendant around her neck began to glow intensely. Simultaneously, the sapphire scales of Silas and the gold scales of Theron pulsed with the same light. Lysandra wasn't just erecting them. She was powering them. "My dollar, I'm a HFY, dollar pet is ready," she stated. "Silas, full dispersal shield. Theron, draw fire, target the cruiser's engine housing." The 2 Niran dragons executed the commands with impossible coordination. Silas flared its internal shielding, wrapping Elias and Lysandra in a localized bubble of protection, just as the cruiser opened fire. Theron, with an incredible burst of speed, flew straight toward the cruiser, acting as a daring scaled missile. The cruiser, hesitant to use its main cannon on such a small, agile target, focused its secondary batteries on the gold dragon. This gave Silas the window Lysandra had risked everything for. "Forward jump coordinates are locked into Silas's internal matrix," Lysandra explained, her voice strained by the immense mental energy she was expending. "It will not be a precise jump, but it will be away from Xylos. Hold on, human." The sapphire dragon began to glow, the air around it shimmering violently as its personal jump drive engaged. The Vylori cruiser was scrambling, realizing the gravity of the escape. Theron, having successfully distracted the bulk of the firepower, banked sharply and joined Silas just as the world dissolved into a blinding warp of stars. When they reappeared, the intense glow subsided. They were alone in the blackness of deep space, far beyond the Xylosian defense grid. The cruiser and the destroyers were gone. Elias let out a ragged breath, the adrenaline finally receding, leaving him weak. He looked back at Lysandra, who was slumped against him, her eyes closed, her energy depleted. We did it," he whispered, feeling the smooth, cool scales of the sapphire Naran beneath him. Lysandra slowly opened her eyes, a faint, exhausted smile touching her lips. "Yes, and now Elias Vance," she said, her voice soft but absolute. "You have your collateral. The Duke's alien wife is yours to command. But you need to understand the price of this freedom. He will never stop looking for me. You are now the target of a Vylori Duke, and you possess the most powerful HFY weapon in his galaxy." Elias looked out at the stars, the thrill of the escape replaced by the cold weight of responsibility. He reached up and gently touched the silver pendant on her neck. "I just wanted the money," he said, shaking his head. "And you got something better," Lysandra finished, her sapphire eyes holding his gaze. "A silent testament to the bond that had been forged in plasma fire and audacity. You got a chance to be a hero. Now take us to the core worlds. We have a war to prepare for."